Okay, so now that we have idea as to what a debit balance and a credit balance is, let's look at how to balance off an account. Now, there are the following steps we have to follow. Step number 1, determine the total of each of the two sides of the account. Determine the total of the two sides of the account, each of them. So let me use the cash account here, right? So the first step is telling us to total the debit side and the credit side. So I think we can do this easily. The credit side has a total of 1,000. Okay, let me have some space here so that I can use it. So the debit side has a total of 1,000, and the credit side has a total of then 180 plus 250. That is going to give us 430. So that's the first step. The second step is use the greater total as the total on both sides. Now, I want us to skip that and go to the next, which is the third and fourth. The third one says determine the difference between the two totals. Okay, so these totals that we have, we need the difference. So what is the difference between 1,000 and 430? Yes, mom work calculator, maybe need calculator or but it might be in a mental, but I'm sorry, I can't continue. 1,000, Richmond, how much is the difference? Is it 570?
5.
Okay, thank you very much. So that is the difference. So the third step asks you to get the difference, right? The fourth step says insert the difference at the smaller side. I'm taking it again. Insert the difference. I see 2 hands raised up. Is that a question? Yeah, Prof. Bishop, go ahead. If it's a question, go ahead. Or it's a mistake. Okay, I think I'll take it as a mistake. So let's move. The fourth step says insert the difference at the smaller side and describe it as balance CF or balance CD. Now, please, that CF and CD means carry forward or carried down. Carried forward or carried down. Okay, so the C for carried, F for forward, D for down. Now, the modern one we have been using is the CD, right? So I would suggest to you that you use the CD more of the time, right? Not compact disc, please. Carried down. Don't think about any other CD, I beg you. Carried down. So it's saying that look at the smaller side. So if we look at this cash account, the smaller side is this side. Why? Because that is having 430. So that's the smaller side. The bigger side is the 1,000, which is the debit. So the step is telling us that insert the difference, okay, which is 570, at the smaller side, which I've done. And under the details, call it balance C/D like this, okay? Now you see that one thing is missing, and that is the date. What date are you going to put there? Please use the closing date. Use the closing date of the period. So for this question, the period was March. So March ends at what date? Monamonim calendar. March, the month March ends on what date? Is it not 31st? So 31st March 2008, that will be the closing date for the period March. So after you have inserted this, your balance carry down, then I think you can move on to the second step. So I think I need to rearrange these steps. The second step should come probably to the fourth. Yes. Good. So after inserting your difference, you now use the greater total as the total on both sides. So here the total, which is 1,000, the greater one, will be used as total on both sides. Look at how I do that. So 1,000 here, and then 1,000 here. What you have to do again there is to underline those totals, right? So this is how you do it. It's very simple, but because this is our first time, that is why I'm taking my time. When you get used to it, you will be doing it like yes. So this is how you put in the total. After inserting the difference, you now put in the total, but the total amount will be the bigger amount or the bigger total. So you see that I've used the bigger total as the total on both sides like this. Then the last point says that put the balance CF or balance CD at the opposite side beneath the total. So let me do it gradually. This is the balance CD. The step is telling me to put it on the opposite side. So the opposite side will be this side, where under the total. So I have to come under this total on the opposite side and put that figure there, 570. And this time I'll call it balance BD, balance brought down. The B for brought. Okay. So balance BD, balance brought down. What date would I use? It's very simple. You see the closing date you use for the balance carry down. The BD, oh, I think BD, I've done a DB. So BD, B/D. Okay. The date for the BD will be the opening date for the next period. So if March is ending on 31st, from 31st March, what will be the next date? The next date will be 1st April 2008. And that is it. You have finished balancing your account. So in balancing of account, the two key things you have to pay attention to is your balance carry down and your balance brought down, which all happens to be the difference, okay, the difference between the two totals, right? But you have to pay attention how to label them, put them so that you don't mess things up. So this is how you balance an account. You first determine the total on both sides. You look at the difference between them and you put the difference at the smaller side and label it balance carry down. Now, sometimes you can even shorten the balance to just BAL like this. It's acceptable. BAL, balance, CD, right? Or if you have time, you can write it in full. But I prefer the BAL, right? Yeah. So that when the art students see it, they will say, ah, what is BAL? And also show them that, yes. So any question on this before we attempt balancing another account? Okay, no question. Now, speaking on the type of balance, you see already we saw that the debit side is more than the credit side. So this account has a debit balance. But look at it. Any account that has a debit balance has the balance BD on the debit side. So if the balance BD is on the debit side, it means that account has a debit balance. You can also use the CD to get it. If the balance CD is on the credit side, then it means that account has a debit balance. So these are features, but if that is confusing you, I beg you, use the difference. Okay, the larger side determines the balance. So if the debit side is greater, then the balance has a debit, the account has a debit balance, or vice versa for a credit balance. Let me do the next one, which is the capital account. The capital account. But before I come to the capital account, let's see one which has lots of entries in there before I come to this account with just single entries, right? So let's do the purchases account. So my first question to you before we even balance it is, what type of balance would this purchase account have? Would it have a debit or credit? Prof. Alexia, try this for me. Would this account will it have a debit or credit balance?
So please debit.
Thank you. Simply because when you look at it, the debit is more than the credit. So let's go through the balancing. First, we need the total for the debits and total for the credits. So debit total 250 plus 180 plus 150. Calculator people, are you ready with the figure? Bishops.
Sir.
Yes. What is the total?
That is 580.
580. Thank you. And
Sir, please, no, it's 430.
Are you sure it's 430? 250 plus 180 plus.
Yes, oh, sorry.
I hope the EBA is not confusing your brain. Anyway, that's just by the way. So the total is 580 for the debit side. The credit side, there's nothing there, so that's 0, right? So let's look at the difference. The difference obviously will be 580. Now, what does the step say? The step says that put this difference on the lower side. And here the lower side is the credit side. So come to the credit side and put that difference there of 580 and call it balance, or BAL for short, balance CD, balance carry down. Now the date, use the closing date of the period. So again, March ends 31st, so 31st March 2008. After that, put the total on both sides, right? So here the total is 580. Here will also be 580. And if you are paying attention, the total should be on the same line, right? Then you underline them. So I need to underline this total. Okay. Now, even the lines under the figure should be done twice like this. Okay, you have to underline it twice like this. Okay. Then after you have brought in the total, the carry down should go to the opposite side under the total. So it will come here 580. But this time we'll call it balance brought down. And the date we are going to put there is the next opening date, which is 1st April 2008. Right, and that's all. So you see that's very simple. Very, very simple to do. Now, I've been able to do for the account that has a lot of entry. Now, if you check this capital account, it only has one entry. So let's look at how you balance it. It's the same principle. The total on both sides. So here 1,000 against 0. The difference will be 1,000. So you put it at the lesser side, 1,000. And you call it balance sheet, right? And the date will be 31st March 2008. Now, because the entry is just one, you don't need to come down and put the total, okay, as in do this, and 1,000 like this, 1,000, and underline them, okay, underline them before you bring your brought down. If the entry is just one, you can skip writing the totals like that, okay. And you just underline the figures twice, that's all. So you underline the figures 2 times, just like this. Then you bring your carry down to the opposite side, which will have the 1st April 2008 as the date, and with balance brought down 1,000. So what we have skipped here is that you see the total that we used to bring, we didn't bring it because it's just one entry. So you can just underline the figures and bring your carry down brought down. So this account obviously has a credit balance because the balance brought down is on the credit side, right? Or better still, the credit side was greater than the debit side. That is why it has. So that is how you balance off an account. Now, if you are paying attention, you see that we just want the two sides to agree. That is why when we find the difference, we put it at the lesser side so that the two balances would be equal. So you see, in this case, we put the 570 here so that we can have 1,000 on the credit equal to 1,000 on the debit. But that difference will be carried on as the balance on that account. So I want to believe I've been able to convince you. And if I should give you any account, you can balance it for me. And most importantly, also tell me whether it has a debit balance or a credit balance. I'll pause for questions if there are. If there are no questions, I think I don't want to add on. I'll pause here and expect on your page accounts that you are going to balance for me. And you tell me whether that balance is a debit balance or a credit balance as your assignment. Okay. So I would want to wrap up, but I'll wait for questions. So question time.